thank you very much, and I'm very greatly humbled to be able to present once more a country case study for Zambia. My name is Martin Daka, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Ukadzipalile Integrated Project, a local organization that is working in collaboration with different government departments, the Ministry of Water and Sanitation, be primary in this sector space, and also a few other cooperating partners. Yeah, so we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so basically, yeah, we're delivering this on behalf of our country, and basically I just gave a bit of some background on where we're coming from. The next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So our presentation outline will be basically giving a background, our country's WASH vision targets, our current situation update, some sanitation interventions that have been done by government and in collaboration with other collaborating partners, and the opportunities and lessons learned, and some challenges that we have been encountering basically as a country. So in line with the 7th National Development Plan, water has been prioritized in the Vision 2030, and we wish as a country to attain 100% access to water by the year 2030. And of course, we wish to attain at least 90% access to sanitation by the year 2030. So we have as a country the National Water Supply and Sanitation Program implementation, which is talking about the National Urban Water Supply and Sanitation Program, focusing on implementation through the commercial utilities, and the National Rural Water Supply and Sanitation, which is usually implemented through the local authorities. So we have statistics that have been set out basically in terms of basic sanitation and basic water supply, as outlined in the slide. And of course, we have a great note that access to sanitation still remains a great challenge. So in the year 2018, we did face quite a challenge as a country when we had an outbreak of cholera. And of course, over time, we as a country have been trying to, as much as possible, expedite sanitation improvement and also water supply in order to prevent such kind of an occurrence coming about in the near future. Of course, there's a need for proactive plan, and that proactive plan may need quite a lot of support, be it materially and financially. Next slide. Yeah, so basically we have a background that is stating that about over $16 million is lost each year in access time per se, basically because each person practicing open defecation spends almost 2.5 days, perhaps a year, according to stats, looking for a private location to defecate and leading to large economic losses. So these statistics can be found in WSP 2012. These figures impact on poor sanitation and hygiene, where they are identifying that approximately 8,700 Zambians, including 6,600 children under 5, die each year from diarrhea. Okay, and this is giving us up to about $167 million lost each year to premature death. Okay, so nearly 90% of which directly attributed to poor water and sanitation and hygiene. That's basically poor WASH. Okay, so in addition to poor sanitation, is a contributing factor through its impact on malnutrition rates. You know, to other leading causes of child mortality include malaria and likes, measles, etc., etc. So statistics do show that about $1 million is lost each year due to productivity losses as well, while sick or accessing health care. So it leads us further to $10.6 million being spent each year on health care. So basically, the statistics as presented in the slide give us more of a background to where we're coming from and where we are as a country. Next slide, please. Yeah, So the current statistics in terms of sustainable development goal number 6, which is WASH monitoring, we could find this information on washdata.org/data, and it gives us more insight into where we are as a country. Next slide, please. Yeah, so water and sanitation, SDG 6 statistics in Zambia. Of course, washdata.org gives a broader breakdown into what our situation is. We have surface water highly in the bright yellow on the top, and improved, limited, basic, and safely managed sanitation. Of course, we seek to reach a point of safely managed sanitation by virtue of the interventions that are going on at the moment. And of course, our country's situation does indicate that there's a lot more of sector financing needed, and a lot more players that need to come on board to expedite our outreach, especially as we race towards the year 2030, to which we seek to meet our expected targets. Next slide, please. Sanitation 6, basically on sanitation, of course, we have open defecation as the top part, bright yellow, and improved, limited, and basic sanitation. As a country, in the year 2018, the country launched an open defecation-free strategy, and this strategy is seeking to ensure that as a country we reach an open defecation-free status by the year 2030. But of course, we are aware and alive to the fact that a lot of people do not have proper access to toilet or sanitation facilities. Hence, the need and the cry to seek increased sector financing. Of course, we are working or doing so much we can to reach the expected targets of 100% open defecation free status by the year 2030. But of course, we are seeking a lot more of engagement between sector players and also the government financing, and also perhaps collaborating partner support in increasing outreach to these areas. Let's go to the next slide. So all this information we will find on washdata.org. Of course, sanitation and water don't go hand in hand with the hygiene aspect. And of course, in today's time where we have the crisis with COVID-19, which seeks to ensure that we always adhere to hand washing and personal hygiene, as a means of ensuring that we keep the virus in check. So we have the bright yellow above there is no hand washing, no hygiene facilities. The light one in the middle, limited and basic. So of course, there we see the need to increase outreach in the space of providing facilities for basically hand washing and basic hygiene facilities and stuff. We need an increase in these spaces, especially as we also seek to install sanitation infrastructure. Let's go to the next slide. So our vision, WASH vision for 2030 and the 7th National Development Plan targets, we seek clean water and sanitation for all by 2030. So the targets are like safely managed sanitation. Of course, we seek 50% in urban and 50% in rural areas by 2021 and 90% by 2030. So looking at what has been happening in the background, we seek to increase the threshold to get to about 50% by the year 2021. And of course, that's in rural areas and also in urban areas. And by the year 2030, this seeks to about 90%. Basic sanitation should be by 70% in urban areas and 50% by in the rural areas by 2021 and 90% by 2030. So open defecation free should reduce to 0 in urban and 10% in rural by the year 2021 and 0% by 2030. 40% of population using a hand washing facility with basic sanitation, with soap and water by 2021, and 100% by 2030. Basic sanitation services in healthcare facilities should increase by 70% by 2021 and 100% by 2030. And basic sanitation facilities in schools should be about 40% by 2021 and 100% by 2030. So we see an ambitious target of by 2030 we should be more or less close, or if not 100%, in terms of reaching out. Next slide, please. Okay, so access to sanitation and hygiene services. So we have these statistics as a current status. Okay, so which is seeking the urban areas, also rural areas. Sorry, access to basic sanitation is like 31% in the rural areas and 90% in the urban areas. The more reason why we are seeking to get to 50% by the year 2021 in both spaces, in order that at least we have a positive trajectory towards the year 2030. Open defecation is at 15% in rural, and we seek it to rise to 100% in terms of being open defecation free. So it should get to 0 by the year 2030. Presence of hand washing facilities with soap and water. Okay, so we have those statistics at play. And if you look at the previous slide, or look at the previous slide, we are seeing that there's a need to increase in hand washing facilities and also basically hygiene facilities, because we are really lacking in that space. Next slide, please. So the Vision 2030 and the 7th National Development Plan WASH target, WASH required investments. As a country, we have we've been seeking about $7.5 billion by 2030 is what is needed in order to meet our WASH targets. As of 2019, we had only about $1.5 billion investment in the sector, which means that we had a deficit of about $6 billion. So there's need, of course, to increase in sector financing to ensure that it is giving a positive trajectory towards meeting about the 7.5 billion estimated target to be able to meet our sanitation, our WASH targets. So there's need also for coordinating an effective service delivery mechanism. We need to promote accelerating efforts to improve sanitation. And of course, one of the strategies in this space is the launch of the Open Defecation Free Strategy, which is looking to accelerated efforts to meeting an open defecation free Zambia by 2030. But of course, in reaching this status, we need a lot of concerted, coordinated efforts in interventions. There's need to scale up service delivery to reach the unserved population. There's need to embrace innovative WASH sectors, management of information systems, support capacity development for effective coordination, planning and implementation and monitoring and evaluation of WASH services, which is very, very important. And of course, they need support strengthening of policy and regulatory framework. There's need for strengthened emergency preparedness and response. For instance, the cholera response and the refugee influx, basically increase in the populations, and also because of the impending crisis that might arise. There's need for a lot of strengthened emergency preparedness. And of course, because of climate change issues and stuff, we expect either that we're going into a rainy season, we might expect a bit of some floods and stuff in a number of areas, which might cause a risk also to perhaps our sanitation infrastructure. And of course, the water would mix with effluent and of course pose a public health hazard. And of course, multi-sectoral coordination needs to be enhanced. Next slide, please. So, urban sanitation programs, sanitation interventions, and most of these infrastructure development and also programs have been implemented by government, and through collaborating partner support, we have over about 1.5 billion government investments in the water sector through various projects being implemented across the country. Some of the notable projects include the Lusaka sanitation program, which has been running, the Millennium Challenge account, Lusaka water supply and sanitation, and the drainage project. This Millennium Challenge has been financed by the U.S. The U.S. government fund. Integrated small town water and sanitation support project supported by Africa Development Bank. The Nkana Water Supply and Sanitation Project Phase 1 and 2, the Danida Mixed Credit Water Supply and Sanitation Project, etc., etc. And also, we have a pending project proposed, ablution construction in the Chainama Hills College Hospital, which is a proposal that was submitted to the WTA in collaboration with the Global Dry Toilet Association of Finland, and we desire that it helps to improve the sanitation space, especially in line with the joint monitoring program on WASH, especially in health facilities, riding on the theme of last year's World Toilet Day, which was leaving no one behind, and looking at the vulnerable space in which we seek to install this infrastructure. We hope that it shall be supported. The Rural Sanitation and Hygiene Program focus on improving sanitation in rural districts. That's about 85 districts. Of course, the community-led total sanitation as a main approach to end open defecation, and where 3 million people have been reached with sanitation between 2012 and 2016, and also focus on improving school wash. So the Ministry of Water Supply, Water Development, and Sanitation and Development Protection coordinates with Ministries of Health, Education, and Ministry of Chiefs and Traditional Affairs. And of course, in this space, the Global Dry Toilet Association of Finland, through the Zambia Dry Sanitation Country Program, has been running for the past 4 years, and of course is scaling up for the next 4 years from the 4 districts that programs have been implemented to 16 districts. Next slide, please. So the Zambia Dry Sanitation Country Program, Phase 1 was 2017 to 2020, and Phase 2 runs from 2021 to 2024. And those are the key activities for both phases, basically to expedite awareness creation, education and capacity building, sensitization, stakeholders and media, demand creation, social marketing, creating livelihoods among beneficiaries, construction of dry sanitation, that's urine diversion, dry toilets, the facilities and water points, meaning there's some installation of boreholes, basically for sanitation, hygiene, and also for reuse or of the waste in possible agroforestry and basic gardening and stuff. So there's advocacy, agriculture and forestry, the reuse of urine and compost, agriculture research in terms of safety and the likes. So the Phase 2, in addition to previous mentioned, special attention is given to gender, youth and disability mainstreaming, climate change adaptation and mitigation activities. So in this program, the local partners include the Livingston Green Initiative, based in Livingston, the Network for Environmental Concerns and Solutions, NECOS, based in Lusaka, Livingston Green Living, the Green Living Movement is Lusaka based but operating in outlying areas, and Ukadzipalile Integrated Project, that's us. Next slide, please. So the Phase 2 planned outcomes of the Zambia Dry Sanitation Country Program is to enhance possibilities for participation and advocacy by the communities. That's improve service delivery and improve capacity of the local partners to ensure sustainability. Then we seek to increase community and institutional awareness. That's improve sanitation, behavior practices, and attitudes towards WASH, especially towards dry toilets, and growing demand for facilities and services in project areas and in general in Zambia. So the best practices, technologies and innovations identified through project activities and research and relevant research to ensure better capacity and full scientific evidence for the advocacy work. And of course, gender vulnerable youth, disability inclusions are enhanced. The participation of vulnerable groups should be improved, and climate change adaptation and mitigation activities are included in community approaches. And this speaks also in line with this year's theme for World Toilet Day, which speaks into sustainable sanitation and climate change. So we really appreciate the focus. Increased provision of toilets, water, and hygiene for all leads to reduced incidence of open defecation. Then sanitation value chain is created, completing the circular sanitation economy, leading to increased revenue streams and better livelihoods. So the next slide, please. So our planned working areas are 16 districts listed there. That's Chibombo, Chipata, Isoka, Kalomo, Kazungula, Livingston, Luansha, Lusaka, Monze, Mpongwe, Mpulungu, Mchenga, Nakonde, Chilenje, Ndola, and Serenje. So it is notable that some district activities will only be awareness creation and advocacy related, whereas construction of facilities will not be done in all of the areas. And we have a total budget for 4 years of about 1.31 million euros, that's of about 26 million kwacha with the current rate. And funding is 85% from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland and 15% of funding from the Global Dry Toilet Association of Finland, to which we are really grateful. Next slide, please. So opportunities and lessons learned. So what we see is that the government's prioritization of WASH sector in the 7th National Development Plan, that is a positive step. The commitment to addressing sanitation in Zambia. So policy and institutional strengthening, that's the creation of Ministry of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection, which is a ministry charged with the responsibility of overseeing this sector. Strong collaboration between sector, ministry and other players. The donors' interest in the sanitation and hygiene sector, and active participation by communities and the local leadership, so the chiefs. There's commitment to an open defecation-free Zambia by 2030, referenced by the open defecation-free strategy that was launched in the year 2018. And WASH functions, managing information systems for rural and urban areas, that's mobile to web, guide planning, decision-making in 65 rural districts. And also the regulation of rural water and sanitation by the National Water Supply and Sanitation Council, the alignment of the National Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Program Phase 2 to fast-track implementation. And also we had a nutrition summit, which renewed focus on is investments in WASH. That was in the past few years. So we see that there is a lot of positive response towards sanitation. Next slide, please. So we learned some lessons, and among the lessons include the 2018 cholera outbreak that demonstrated a strong need to strengthen the integration of risk reduction and emergency preparedness, and also response in regular development programming. And also the engagement with community resource persons, the traditional leaders, community-based structures, and the use of indigenous local technology and local solutions remains key to success. So there's need to promote sustainability. It is imperative to strengthen post-implementation, monitoring and maintenance arrangements to prior to project implementation and handing over of facilities. Next slide, please. So among the challenges include inadequate financial resources against the high investment requirements for the sector. So of course, the target is 7.5 billion up to 2030. And so each year that comes, and also in terms of spaces of outreach, the financing needs to be commensurate with the demand of the work that is at hand. Water quality issues leading to outbreaks of diseases, especially in peri-urban areas. Of course, with the ongoing infrastructure installation, and also with the challenges that we face in the country with regards to perhaps electricity provision and stuff. We have erratic water supply. No, I think you've gone ahead. Can you come back? Just go back on the challenges, not that one before. There we go. Yeah. So I was explaining on the issue of water quality issues leading to outbreaks of diseases. I was expanding on that a bit, but however, we can continue. Latrines usage and maintenance low in rural areas, leading to open defecation. And planned settlements pose challenges in the provision of water supply and sanitation services. Post-implementation monitoring, especially for the rural areas where volunteers are used. Sustaining hand washing practices at key moments. Capacity gaps at local levels coupled with limited resources presents a challenge for the continued monitoring and technical backstopping. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, which of course has affected also funding, as we referred to last year. We couldn't get some additional support in some areas because of the COVID-19 pandemic as it came through, but also when there is financing for COVID response, mostly we find that it is focused on health, reach out and stuff, and of course sanitation has been quite affected in terms of not having enough support. Next slide, please. We get to learn, next slide, that people think that flushing toilets is a model to which is like on top of the sanitation ladder, and dry toilets seem to be for the poor. And so just previous slide, Emma. Yes, please. The stigma and culture resistance, the new concepts, especially of dry toilets, needs a lot of training and sensitization. Key participation elements, participation of community needs, capacity building, costs. Families and communities have challenges to fundraise, for example, for the construction and aims, and sometimes the operation and maintenance through. So therefore, we see, although the operations and the maintenance are quite low in the dry toilet situation. Technical challenges and costs. There's poor infrastructure to reach communities. In cities, lots of tenants who are moving in and out, so there's constant need for training, regular training. Operation and maintenance, sustainability, especially public toilets, quite difficult to operate and maintain. Then the use of urine and compost in some areas. There's cultural stigma and no space in urban areas. Lack of sanitation chain utilizes of products nearby farmers, for etc., etc., and also the issues of transport. So if we're going to reuse most of our perceived waste in terms of excrement, there's need for the users, and most of these could be farmers. And in urban areas, we may not have those, so therefore there's need to collect and transport perhaps to would be users of the treated waste. Next slide. What you see in the next slide are pictorial presentations of what government has been doing. And of course, we have new constructed counter square ponds. These are treatment plants on the upper left. There was Akile waterborne toilets on the upper right. Underneath there, demonstration latrines in George Compound. That's the Lusaka Sanitation Program in Lusaka, and institutional latrines. That's the Lusaka Sanitation Program. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So basically, those are just pictorial examples of some projects with before and after toilet facilities. Okay, so local partner interventions. We see a lot of community sensitization there and advocacy works going into the community. Issues to do with waste collection, reuse, and hand washing, and some gardening. Next slide, please. Next slide, Emma. Thank you. So those are more works from local partners and also some institutional um, uh, 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 toilets installed with some IEC material, and also just down by the bottom there where we find reusable pads, sanitary pads for the girl child, where we cannot, schools or children in the communities cannot afford to buy the sanitary pads, at least reusable ones that can be washed and reused can be promoted. So the next slide in conclusion is basically an acknowledgement of the Ministry of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection. Next slide, Emma. The Global Dry Toilet Association of Finland, in the Zambia Dry Sanitation Country Program, the University of Zambia, the Levi Mwanawasa Medical University, the Chanama Hills College Hospital, and the University of Limpopo, who we are constantly engaging with in consultation, and a lot of materials being shared and guidance is being provided for the work that we are doing. Indeed, the last slide. Water is life, sanitation is health and dignity. We love toilets, and thank you so much, WTA, for the opportunity to allow us to be a part of this meeting, and of course for allowing me to present. I thank you all.